So first, we have a introductory message from Matt Bolish.
Hi, everybody. How's it going tonight? How's everyone feeling? Good, excited, pumped, ready to rock and roll? Let's hear it. Come on. Yeah, I'm the warm-up ass. So I am, my name is, and then I can't say anything. Thank you guys very much. My name is Matt Bolish. I work here at the Film Society of Lincoln Center, and I help manage our Convergence program, which is our program that focuses on immersive storytelling, transmedia, video games, you name it. We look at it, and we like to kind of explore how storytelling is changing with the kind of the collision, not intersection is much too gentle a word, but the collision of all these different technologies and medias. So, you've heard us talk the last couple of meetings about events that we're going to be doing during the New York Film Festival. And on your seats or the bench or whatever you want to call it tonight, we've included the program guide to NYFF, and we've also included a little kind of factoid, paper there for you guys in StoryCode. What we're going to be offering to all the StoryCode members, and there'll be an email that will be distributed, I believe, in the next couple of days, is a Convergence badge, normally priced at $150. We're going to cut that down to $100 for you guys, $99. And then member tickets, or I should say Film Society member tickets, which is $10 a ticket as opposed to $15 for folks who are non-members. So that's our way to kind of, in a way, thank StoryCode because they've been our kind of longest-standing partners in the transmedia space, and we're really excited. And we hope that a lot of you will join us. We've got some amazing programs lined up, and that's in, this makes me kind of ill to say this, but in 10 days. 10 days, that'll happen. New York Film Festival starts on the 28th with Life of Pi, and will run 17 long marathon days. We hope you guys will join us for Convergence and check out the festival. It's an amazing thing this year. So thank you very much. I have gone on far too long. Enjoy this evening. StoryCode.
Thanks, Matt. So we'll be posting the information about those badges, so look for that. We'll send that out.
So welcome new people, welcome old people. This is our monthly forum, it's called. It's the thing we post on Meetup once a month. It's one of our many programs that we offer at StoryCode. We have a couple things we offer. We offer this. We offer the immersions also once a month on a different schedule. And this is open to everyone. It's free, so please invite your friends. You can sign up for our newsletter, which we send out also once a month, which has kind of the hottest things happening in the space, in the immersive media, transmedia space. It's a great way to keep up or learn if you're a newbie to the space. So do go on the website, enter your email, and we'll send it to you. The other thing you should know for tonight, if you are tweeting, our hashtag is #StoryCode, StoryCode. And you'll probably want to tweet because I have a feeling that someone who is our guest tonight might have some things to say. So we'll get into that in a second. But I'd like to introduce our first guest. Tonight we have some members of, virtually and in real life, some members of the team creating a film called Saving Lincoln. I know it's Lincoln Mania. There was Vampire Lincoln, now there's Real Lincoln, and now there's Saving Lincoln. We're happy to be part of the Saving Lincoln team. Oh, Vampire Killer. So the Saving Lincoln team has a couple people. Blaine Greyboys, who is here today, is our in-person person. We have Ruben Lim, who's an independent film producer, who's actually, I don't think physically here, but we have some tape from him. And then we also have Salvador Litbach, who is on Skype, I believe, and will be joining us through that. Blaine will start off with the presentation. And just about the film. So it's an independent film. It uses a very original, innovative technique to capture the action, which you'll hear about. It's pretty awesome. And the story itself is the story of Abraham Lincoln told from the perspective of his self-appointed bodyguard, U.S. Marshal Ward Hill Layman, who is the Twitter character that brings us here today. So please, warm welcome to Blaine.
Cool. Thanks, everybody. So as Ina mentioned, we're here to talk about Saving Lincoln. I've been able to secure some of the first scenes from the film that I'll be able to share with everybody today. And the team and I worked to put together a case study breakdown, if you will, of how we came up with the idea, how we manage it on a day-to-day basis, what some of the outcomes are like, and some of the learnings that we had doing the project. So I wanted to start out with this cool piece. So this is actually a really cool motion poster that they made. I was asking Sal the other day, oh, have you seen a lot of motion posters before? And he said, no, I haven't seen any. So I think it's a really cool way that they're marketing the film and adding more story and narrative to what would normally be kind of a static experience. So today we're going to talk about Saving Lincoln, or at Saving Lincoln, and how we use Twitter to promote the indie film Saving Lincoln. This is one of the shots from the film, President Lincoln atop the parapet at Fort Stevens when Washington, D.C. came under Confederate attack during the Civil War. So they're really portraying some incredibly dramatic moments. And as Ina mentioned, the film was all shot green screen and is composited on top of real historical photos. And they've gone to great lengths to get amazing source material and photos that make up the film. So I'm going to start with the trailer to kind of set the stage for the film.
Keeping him alive these past 4 years was nigh on impossible.
If so valued his life, why were you not at Forest Theater?
To understand that, you have to hear the whole tale.
He has no answer. He merely bargains for time.
Let him speak.
Often I wondered how I, a son of the South, came to be entrusted with that precious life when so many of my brethren sought to take it.
Okay, so that was a little introduction, kind of give you a flavor for the film. Just to reiterate, it's the story of Ward Hill Lamon, who was Lincoln's closest friend and bodyguard. One of the challenges we had with the project was telling the story and introducing people to the character of Lamon. A lot of people don't know who he is, didn't know he existed, possibly think he's made up. So as we were starting to work on the project, we started to, when I say the project, the film, as the film was starting to be developed, I was working with Ruben Lim, the producer, and starting to talk about ways that we could lay the foundation for the film and introduce the character of Ward Hill Lamon. This is a shot of the Twitter feed from sometime yesterday, and I actually grabbed it because it shows a few really important things that we're able to do. The 3 tweets at the bottom are part of the story tweets that we do every day that I'll talk about. Then you can actually see a tweet from Sal in there. So it shows how real people and the filmmaker are able to interact. And then at the top, we have a response from someone who's direct messaged the Twitter account and Lammin has responded to. So that kind of shows all three of the main uses that we make of the Twitter account: telling stories, if you will, marketing the film, and communicating with fans. So just jumping back, kind of where did this all start? In 2011, I was meeting with Ruben, who is a friend of mine, and Ruben and I have worked on a number of projects together. And Ruben sent me an email that said, literally, how do we tackle setting up outposts and managing our online presence and crowd building in an affordable way? So everything started with that email that Ruben sent to me. And on a few calls, we outlined some of what we thought were the challenges for the campaign. Building awareness for an unreleased indie movie, working with a very lean team and resources, having no access to production elements. So like all these films and clips I'm showing you today, we didn't have any of that as we were running the campaign. Building a campaign that we could sustain for over a year or more. At this point, we were well into a year. And outdoing the larger Lincoln projects, which to some degree I feel like we have done, but on a very much smaller budget. Just interestingly, for those of you that don't know, this is one of the few rare photographs of Abraham Lincoln. It's kind of hard to see him in there, but it's one of the few rare known photos of Abraham Lincoln, so I like to include that there. So what's the team look like? This is the Twitter team, if you will. Brad Cook is our primary writer. Brad and I have worked together a number of times over the last few years. Before iTunes and iPad, Brad ran apple.com/games. Once that was moved to iTunes and is now crowdsourced, Brad's been doing a number of different gaming and marketing projects. Brad worked with me on a few different games that I've done over the years. Sal and Nina, Sal's the director, Nina's the scriptwriter. They're a brother and sister team that have worked on a number of films together. Over the years, When Do We Eat was their last film. For those of you that want to check out a really interesting film, I would recommend checking out When Do We Eat. Ruben is my friend and one of the producers, and then me, I'm a consultant on the project. So I wanted to first lay out like a little bit of our strategy. What was our planning and how did we bring this project together? So I'm very big on strategy. I like to lay out strategy before we actually get into tactics and production. So we started with this idea of focusing on story. Obviously, being here at StoryCode, I think it's super relevant. To me, story is the most powerful medium we have. If I say to you, let me tell you a story, I am sure you're already engaged just at that moment. So we really wanted to leverage the power of story and narrative. That was key to us. Developing the universe, the world of Ward Hill Lammin was another big one. And I think this is a really interesting point because so often I feel like transmedia is kind of shoehorned into this world of like sci-fi and action and comic books and video games. And we really wanted to show how those same techniques and processes are relevant to not sci-fi, in this case a historical scripted feature film. Be fast and cheap, not embarrassed to say that we were on a budget. It's an indie film. The total budget for the film was $700,000, which for those of you in the indie world, that's a very tight budget in the indie world. So there wasn't a lot of money to be spent on marketing. We had to remain authentic, combining history, technology, and indie culture. It's not that easy to live in the indie film world, for those of you that live in that world. The history space, very important to remain authentic. It would have been, there were a lot of things that we talked about that just would have been off-key, for lack of a better term. Wouldn't have necessarily made sense, if you will. And do something fun. I really believe in running unique campaigns, being disruptive. If you're doing something that people have done before, you're probably wasting your time and money. So we really just wanted to do something fun and unique and different. So then we started to lay out our goals and tactics. We had some specific goals, like 10,000 fans, and not just made-up fans, but real legit fans, so not buying tweets or Facebook likes. Creating a network for the film. Again, we were doing all of this in advance, so we're kind of laying the groundwork for people that are going to be our evangelists when the film hits theaters. Building brand awareness and buzz. We're competing against these much bigger films, Steven Spielberg, all this big stuff. How do we compete and build brand awareness and buzz for this indie film? And then we had a small monthly budget, like I said, under $1,000. Actually, to be honest, under half that budget was generally our monthly budget. So from that, we kind of we laid out some specific tactics. Twitter early on we decided was critical, and I'm going to talk quite a bit about why we thought Twitter was the right platform for us. But it has a lot to do with the ability to tell stories in detail. And that was a really important part of it. Being able to get into obscure details about Lincoln or Lamon's life, actual events that happened. There's not a lot of mediums where you can really dig into that level of detail. Being able to build Lamon's voice and the colorful words and language that the speakers during that time used. Again, there's not a lot of mediums where you can have that language come across, especially when you don't have production assets like film and audio. Frequency, we knew we had to be frequent, a lot of repetition. And I'll talk a little bit about the schedule and planning that we ended up on. But in addition to this idea of broadcast, we really wanted this idea of personal interactions. And that was another thing that we wanted from Twitter, was this ability to personally interact with people. And then structure, being able to have the serial format that just simplified our logistics. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. Brad Cook couldn't be here with us today. Brad is our writer. So I had Brad film a short piece to talk a little bit about his use of Twitter. I apologize, it's filmed on an iPhone, so it's a little quiet, so if everyone will just bear with us for a minute.
My name is Brad Cook, and I write more than Lamon stories on Twitter. The idea behind the feed was to imagine Lamon was resurrected in the present day, caught up to date on technology, and given a Twitter account so he could relate his stories about his days with Abraham Lincoln. Now, we wisely avoided the sticky issue of whether zombie Lamon would have a hunger for brains. Twitter is a great medium for Lamon's stories because it lends itself to bite-sized bursts in which you can set the stage for a scene and relate key pieces of dialogue and description that vividly capture historical moments. Like a serialized comic strip, the Saving Lincoln feed covers one story beat a day, so someone who misses a few days or who comes into the story in the middle can still catch up and easily understand what's happening. Now, Twitter is also perfect for establishing a character's voice because it's a constant stream of their thoughts, one in which responses can be immediate. In the case of Lamon, I used the Saving Lincoln screenplay as well as his book, Recollections of Abraham Lincoln, to get a sense of his Southern dialect. It's been a challenge creatively because, I just switched gears mentally from wherever else I'm doing during the day and kind of adopt Lamon's persona for a while. I try to imagine what he sounded like while I'm writing. I find that helps. And of course, Lamon, like many people this day, was a loquacious speaker, so it's been challenging to adopt that style of speech while working within the confines of a 140-character limit. I often find myself rewriting tweets several times to make them fit, while still capturing the flavor of what he said. When I use direct quotes from something he or Lincoln said, I often chop out the least important parts of the sentences, so that colorful language is still there and the meaning is still intact. Twitter really is the perfect adjunct tool for any storyteller who wants to elaborate on their story world while the audience waits for that next movie or book or comic or whatever they're working on. It doesn't take long to write the stories, and you can use a tool like Hootsuite to stage the tweets, so they get sent out automatically when you want them to. In the afternoon, you can write a few weeks or months worth of tweets and get them staged and ready to go and keep your audience engaged. While Lamon's stories, fill in the movie's historical details, feed could relate stories that take place between the first two Godfather films. Now, some might argue that Michael would obviously have never spoken publicly about his misdeeds, but I think you can get around that by saying this sort of treat as a movement is the remembrances of one of his men who witnesses events, is now old and gray, and maybe figures, since everyone who's involved in those things is long gone, it doesn't matter if he talks about them, or maybe he's issuing his confessions under an alias. There are a lot of creative ways you can get around a roadblock you say, well, that character would never use Twitter or something like that. And in the end, I think we're in the early days of figuring out how something like we can use something like Twitter to tell stories and keep people engaged and kind of elaborate on story worlds. As that technology improves and we do more with it, I'm sure there will be new ways to use it.
Cool. So I'm going to break down a few of the points that Brad made because he covered a lot of stuff there. So first, the process, and these are quotes from Brad, so I included a little picture of him up there for you guys. So when we do the stories, basically he figures out how many days to allocate to each one. Some are bigger, some are longer, some need a week or two to unfold. Basically, we figure out the main points of each of those, and then he breaks them down into tweets. Brad sends them to Nina, who's the writer. Nina kind of reviews and approves them. At this point, changes are typically very minimal. So this is a big thing that I hear from people of like, I could never have a writer write for me because it's me, or I could never have a writer write for my TV show because I'm the writer. And I think that this process, for me, proves that that's not the case, and that if you have a talented, empathetic writer, they're able to adopt the voice of the character that they're portraying, and that they're able to interface with the production team while they were in production. So it's worth mentioning, all of this process was happening while the crew was in production. They're filming every day, they're looking at dailies, they're on set, they're traveling, they're in post, yet we were able to work this process out such that it didn't impede on the filmmaking process, and Brad was able to get the feedback that he needed from the filmmaking crew. In our case, we tried a ton of tools and landed on Hootsuite, which we really recommend. It's been a cornerstone for us of being able to manage things. Generally, we manage the whole week on Sunday. So on Sunday, we're prepping everything. We're getting everything staged in Hootsuite. Nina's reviewed everything. We've kind of gone over it. And then everything's set to go for the week. And then we're just in response mode. So when we get great direct messages, we respond. If we see something cool online that we want to make an observational tweet about, we do that. But it's not like a fire drill every day to figure out how to get these posts done. We've gotten it down to a very regimented process. So structure, I think you could use any structure. We ended up with this serial comic strip format. One of the benefits for us is that each day's series of tweets forms kind of a story beat. And each day is like 4 to 8 tweets that become a story. So for us, this was a really great format that we were able to leverage. I don't necessarily think that like serial comic strip format works for everybody, but for us, it worked really well. We could get in-depth if we wanted, or we could be really short. A story beat for the day could just be one incident. We never talk about it again. Oftentimes, though, we have things that we're talking about for a week or two at a time. So our stories begin on Mondays and end on Fridays. That was really big for us, developing our scheduling. And then basically if the tale is multi-week, it ends on a cliffhanger, cliffhanger being one of the greatest movies ever. So that's been a format that we've been able to leverage. Like I said, I don't think it would necessarily work for everybody, but early on we were able to identify this structure, and for us it's been able to hold up over the year or so. Brad talked a little bit about sources. One that he didn't mention is this 1949 doctoral thesis about Lamin that was only available from a library in Illinois, and that's a photo of it. I think that's really important because it just shows how worthwhile it is to go get these original sources and how there are so many original sources out there, and now we're able to leverage it. So, you know, we might be having a discussion, well, what would Lamon think about X, Y, or Z? And oftentimes we're able to find some reference to exactly what he did think about something. So it's just a great example of how we're able to kind of reanimate these historical references and make them very contemporary. So messages. One thing that I didn't touch on back here in the structure is we send the story tweets out all together in the morning. And I showed you that earlier because we like the feed to be structured. So that way you get all the story beats in a row lined up, you know, right after each other. And then what we do is at the end of the day, Brad comes back and responds to individual messages. So basically for any given day, you'll have Lamon's story tweets at the bottom and then followed by responses or direct messages at the top, and it lets us keep everything very succinct and compact. I included some of the fun ones. People always ask, like, why weren't you there to save Lincoln? There's actually a great story to it that's told in the movie Saving Lincoln. But Brad really has fun with it and gets to kind of play with people when they say, like, oh, why weren't you there to save Booth? And we get to really kind of touch on some of that great language, you know, shot that devil twixt his yellow eyes. It's just a great line. So I also included a few of Brad's tips. Always replying in Lamon's voice, so we never break voice. There's never a time where the Twitter feed is, come see the movie or buy this thing. It's always in Lamon's voice. I mentioned already about after the story tweets are sent, we do the messaging so that we can keep the stream clean. Always framing the responses how Lamon believes Lincoln would have responded. So always trying to bring it back to the core subject. And never mention the movie unless asked. That was a big thing that we established early on. We're here to tell Lamon's story. If you ask us about the film, we'll tell you about it, but we're never going to promote it. Retweets are also really fun. Generally, the one-off observational tweets are really great fodder for retweets. So that might be something like historical. The Battle of Antietam was the single bloodiest day in American history. I didn't know that before that tweet. Got retweeted 6 times, which for us is actually kind of a big deal. But oftentimes our observational tweets are also about things that are happening today. So Lamon might comment on Bill O'Reilly's book about Lincoln, or he might comment on some news that was about Lincoln today. Again, always in his voice, always kind of couched in the terms of the story, but it's a way that we're able to kind of get Lamon out of history and make him contemporary. Again, as Brad mentioned, the kind of setup for this Twitter feed was this idea that Lamon is resurrected and living in today's world and is kind of caught up on technology. So that was kind of the setup that we're always able to play on for the Twitter feed. And that's how we're able to have Lamon comment on things in a contemporary way, but still use his historical language. And it was a tool by which I feel like we got around a lot of sticky issues. For example, I don't think it would make sense for Lamon to speak in the same way we do. I don't think it would necessarily be relevant for him to talk about contemporary events that aren't relevant or related to Lincoln and history. So it was a way that we were able to resurrect this character and make him highly relevant. I grabbed some of these, so we were like, well, what were some of the best moments that we had? And I think Brad really touches on something here that I think is really important, is that his favorite tweets are the ones where Lamon makes an observation that exposes the heart of the Saving Lincoln story. And I think that is so relevant to what we're trying to do and what everyone can do. So again, we don't have to be heavy-handed. We don't have to say, oh, this is really crucial to the film. Lamon's able to make a comment on something, and based on the intelligence and reference of the audience, they're able to see how that relates to the film. And I think that's just such a great example of how we can use Twitter to develop story and character and narrative in a way without being so super heavy-handed. So this was a series of 3 tweets. In later years, I often found myself imagining a wiser and grayer Mr. Lincoln sitting by my side, sharing stories of old. Hill, he would say, do you recall the evening my number 8 plug hat was blown clean off my head by an assailant's bullet? I would say I did, and I would laugh with Mr. Lincoln at the memory, and I would have another sip of whiskey in his honor. So what a great way to build the character of Lamon, kind of touch on the real crux of Saving Lincoln, which is that he got assassinated, kind of bring up this idea of like alternate history and the contemporary implications of all of this. But none of it has to be heavy-handed. None of it has to say we're marketing for a film. None of it has to say here's how we're asking you to come interpret our film. We're able to just kind of relay the story of these characters. So I'm going to finish off with a clip from the film that I think relates really well to this Twitter exchange, and it's kind of why I pulled it all together to show how the Twitter feed and the stories we're telling in Twitter relate so directly to the film itself.
Until my purpose is accomplished. And then, when the war is finally won, I shall be gathered unto Willie, Ellsworth, Ned, all the other boys. The veil between them and me is thin already. But I will not be taken until then. This half is the proof. What if last night was simply a mere miss? And you are alive today because I have repeatedly saved you these past 4 years. Why then, my friend? We are both God's instruments.
Mr. President, the Secretary of War.
Cool. So I just thought that was a great wrap-up because it kind of brings everything together and it really shows how the Twitter stream kind of sets the stage for the film, and we're able to give the background for the story in a way that when you arrive to the film and watch the film, you have a new and different experience that you wouldn't have necessarily had before. So that's it for the talk part, but we do have a special guest on the line that I think has heard most of what we've done. Oh, 2 special guests. Can you guys hear us? Awesome. So here, I'm going to turn this around for a second just so you can see. There you go.
Hello.
Cool. So we have a few minutes for questions for Sal or Nina or myself, but hopefully for Sal and Nina since we have them.
Sure. Any questions?
I'm going to...
Thanks. Okay, so what has been the ultimate harvest of this project as far as the tweets? How many fans? How much interaction? Was it worth it?
So we're just under 10,000 followers, which was our goal.
Right.
We're building the buzz and awareness. That was our goal. So I would say from my standpoint, it's been a resounding success. I guess let's see what Sal and Nina
What do you
say.
think, Nina?
I think it's an
Or you? No, go ahead.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Yeah, I would say it's an amazing success, especially considering we don't have a release date yet. The film won't be out for another few months, and already, we have this number. It's fantastic. And, Lamb and Story is just awesome and colorful, and just has many, many chapters in it that there was no room for in the movie. But with Brad and Nina, we've been able to explore them in the Twitter feed. That's been a lot of fun for us, just because he was such a colorful character. And this is really one of the greatest uses of this kind of platform. When you have really great characters and all kinds of material that doesn't fit the movie, you can still communicate with your audience, and they do appreciate it.
Yeah, we just stumbled upon this forgotten character from history, Untitled Chapter, who was the most fascinating guy. He was Southern, he was a banjo player, he was a big burly, guy that got into fights and got drunk and told dirty jokes and stuff. And he was Lincoln's best friend for many years, and he's the only guy Lincoln brought with him to Washington to function both as court jester and bodyguard. So our challenge as writers, as screenwriters, was to tell the story of him and Lincoln in a movie length, and focusing on Lincoln, which is obviously what people are interested in. But there's this guy, Untitled Chapter, who really deserves a movie or at least a Twitter feed of his own. And now, we have a lot of super fans who really engage with us a lot, and like Blaine said, we try to be kind of humble and not promote ourselves, so that we do have a genuine base of people who appreciate what we're offering, which is just a good story.
How many replies per day do you get?
A lot.
On average.
I know Nina and I see them every day. I could actually pull up my email, but it's not uncommon for me to come home from a day of work and see 40, 50 emails waiting.
Yeah, it's impressive.
We get a lot of responses and interactions, a lot of retweet, a lot of direct messages.
No, that's a healthy number, 40.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are there any characters that you decided to maybe you should add those to the Twitter stream from the film? Maybe like his wife or something like that, perhaps.
Nina, could you touch on that, of other characters that we've introduced via the Twitter stream?
We've introduced many other characters. We've introduced Belle Boyd, who was a Southern spy who was like a femme fatale for the South, and her story didn't really intersect with Lincoln, but she actually did come across Lamb a couple times. So we were able to tell her story and get into the idea of spies for the Confederacy and what it was like being in Washington, D.C. at that time, not knowing really who you could trust. We also told a great story, which we aren't able to tell in the movie at all, which was, Lamb was a Southerner, and he grew up in Virginia, and he grew up with slaves. When he met, as soon as he was about 18 or 19 years old, he moved to Illinois. And he took a slave with him who had been bequeathed to him, who was a young man, maybe a little younger than himself. As soon as he reached the Illinois border, he set his slave free. And the story of that relationship was a great story. There was just nowhere for it in the movie. We were able to tell it every Twitter feed. So a lot of stuff from history that's really personal and about good characters is something we can explore.
Okay. First, I have two questions. The one is, how did you introduce the character on Twitter? So, getting to 10,000 is fine, but how did you get your first, let's say, 500? Even if you can't mention the film. And the second question is, you said 4 to 8 beats of a story each day. Is each day 5 times from Monday to, so it's 32 beats in a story, or do you repeat them, and how often do you repeat a tweet?
Sure, so we don't repeat. Generally, a story might just be one day, but sometimes stories go on for a week or 2 weeks even, and we kind of just repeat that format of 4 to 8 tweets a day, Monday through Friday, end on a cliffhanger, bring it back up the next week. So we have many stories that extend beyond a day. In terms of getting our first followers, gosh, it's been so long, but I mean, we really just started it, and we stuck to it. And I think all of our first followers were like legitimate history buffs. Wouldn't you say, guys?
It was a combination of legitimate history buffs and people that worked on the movie, because we started last year when we were in production, so all the different extras and crew members who had Twitter accounts got involved. But mostly, yeah, it's been the Civil War buffs, which is a huge community, actually.
Yeah, so a lot of the direct messages that we get will either be questioning or discussing or commenting on, very detailed, specific topics that we discuss in the Twitter feed. And then from those super fans, as Nina said, that's really where the growth, I think, happened. We actually haven't mapped out the growth, and that would be a fun thing to do at some point. But looking back historically, as we were able to bring on each of these super users, when someone followed us and then we went to their profile and saw they had 5 or 10 or 50,000 followers, they were the people that were really able to catapult us to the next level, the next level. But it was all just totally, purely organic. And there definitely were some early months where it was kind of crickets. It was, from my standpoint, it was the frequency and consistency. So we never gave up. It was the same frequency, same consistency. Those first days we didn't have retweets, we didn't have direct messages, but we're posting the same as we do now.
And then we've also archived all the tweets and stories, and now we're starting to use them as an archive of Glam and Stories that's available on our website, which we're not really promoting yet, but it's going to become a nice treasure as we get closer to release.
Yeah, and Lamb himself has so many fans through Twitter that he has his own Facebook page now. In addition to our Saving Lincoln Facebook page, which is a whole other story and it's really great. But Lamb himself has a Facebook page, so friends can do it. And we also, on the website, start the whole story from the beginning, because we started it already over a year ago. So if you want to do the whole thing from the beginning, you can come to our
Right. Blaine, I don't know if you can show them the SavingLincoln.com site, the Twitter diary section.
Yeah, I'll see if I can bring that up. I want to drop this. So.
2 more questions, sir.
No worries. I'm happy to answer more questions.
Yeah.
I just wondered, following up on that question, did you reach out in the beginning to any Civil War sites and let people, did you do any outreach to Civil War groups or to let them know about it? Or
I'll let Sal and Nina talk about that because that's a part of their production.
Absolutely.
hashtags. There's a lot of
There's been a lot of hashtags, and we did direct outreach to various Lincoln libraries, Civil War societies, roundtables, forums. I mean, one of the best things. I mean, look, we've been on a Lincoln movie for 12 years, and we discovered Landon a couple of years ago. We knew him even from our original research, but we realized that would be the best way to tell the story. So we've been really involved in Landon's voice. And it was just amazing for us to find a writer like Brad, who got it and who could kind of step in and take over that voice and really do a phenomenal job, indistinguishable from the voice that we wrote for the movie. Because he was there, that freed us up, which we needed, because, the nature of this movie was that post-production was the same as production. So even though we shot last summer, we've been making it all year, and as a director, I've been completely...
Oh, what happened? That's not me.
It's the output, I think.
Oh, hang on. Oh, hang on, guys.
Stand by.
Oh, it just went to. Oh, it went to sleep. Is that it?
Yeah, I just went to sleep.
Okay, I think you're back.
Sorry, the computer went to sleep.
Awesome, you're back.
I was just saying that, so I was really working basically 12 hours a day all year on the movie, so I was just not available as one of the writers. Nina was the other writer, but she was not available either because she was helping in post-production, she was working on other projects that we have to keep moving forward, and doing all this outreach, commenting on Lincoln societies and roundtables and forums, and it's a huge world out there. We didn't want to be Johnny-come-lately when the movie comes out, suddenly show up and start talking, on those sites and forums. So, having Brad on the team has just been a godsend for us, not just because he's there, but because he's so good at it.
The voice so perfectly.
Yeah. So I totally agree with Blaine that you should bring in a writer to handle this part of it, but you got to find one as talented as Brad.
And just to that point of experts, I remember the day that guy tweeted from the Smithsonian Institute, and that was just a great example of a real insider, recognizing us, kind of giving us a little bit of credit, distributing it to his audience. It was just a great kind of example and a microcosm of that level of interaction.
Yeah.
We have time for one more, guys.
Hi. So this is a question. Have you anticipated, do you have a game plan for the Lincoln movie coming out in terms of your Twitter conversation? Is he going to address, continue the conversation? Because I imagine suddenly there's going to be a lot of noise on Twitter.
Sure. Nina, do you want to touch on that?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
Oh, the question was how we're going to address Spielberg's movie from Lamon's voice.
Landon, I don't think has commented on, obviously that movie's not out yet. Our movie is a great compliment to that movie because that movie is about Lincoln the politician, and it's about the last 4 months of his life. Ours is about Lincoln, it's about Lincoln the friend, the husband,
Commander-in-Chief.
the commander-in-chief leading the country through the entire Civil War. So we show the whole Civil War. So in terms of the two movies, they're very different, but in terms of how Landon is going to comment on the movie, that's really the question. Obviously he can say nothing, we want to be positive, obviously, so. But yeah, I think after the Spielberg movie comes out, for sure Landon should have some
But that also raises another point is I'm sure some of you may have been thinking, and how are you using Facebook? Because that's a really important platform too. And then we use it in a totally different way. So, we've got 24,000 fans over there, and it's a different set of fans. And they have found us. Right. They just found us because we're making a Lincoln movie. And over there, we speak more in our own voice, and are just constantly posting, Lincoln quotes, Lincoln ideas, photos. We have a special thing that we do on Thursdays about soldiers who fought in the Civil War, that they shall not be forgotten, which is what the Gettysburg Address was all about. That these soldiers shall not have died in vain, shall not have fought in vain, certainly not died in vain. And so, those two platforms really allow us to do different things. And on Facebook, we can do more, of that real world, what's going on in the real world. And when their poster came out, we shared that. And we haven't commented yet on their trailer, but we will because, we're fans of Spielberg's movie. We want it to do well. We think that, America's interested in Lincoln, and if they are, they're going to really want to see our movie because their movie covers such a small slice of the Lincoln story.
Right, and it's actually been great for us because we've already had a lot of publicity just being the other Lincoln movie, which is publicity we thought, we're such a low-budget movie, we can afford a big percentage publicist. So just kind of getting publicity for that has been great and has, brought a lot of people to us.
So these are all different parts of the ecosystem, and I think Blaine and Ruben have just done a tremendous job thinking long in advance of what this ecosystem would look like at the time that the movie's coming out, and really making, planting seeds for different areas of it.
That's all we have time for.
Cool. Say goodbye, everyone. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Talk to you soon.
All right. Well, thanks, Blaine, for that presentation. Very
Cool, yeah.
informative. Very cool. Well, Ina, I don't know about you, but I feel like I've achieved some level of success today, especially with our efforts at StoryCode.
Yeah.
I was reading our Twitter feed, and Betty Draper Francis says, "Pulling on my girdle for party tonight. Hashtag StoryCode." Wow, that is so awesome.
I know.
I'm feeling really good.
Definitely having at Betty Draper here today is of the OMG category. So we're super, super psyched. I'll let you intro.
Yeah, very much so. So when we were putting this evening together, of course, being fans of Mad Men, I mean, who's a big fan of Mad Men in this audience? Come on, right? Okay. There we go. So, we reached out to Helen Klein-Ross, who's the writer behind the at Betty Draper Twitter feed. And so here's a few quick facts. She's got over, at Betty Draper has almost 35,000 followers on Twitter. That's pretty awesome. So through tweeting the inner thoughts of Betty Draper, she's won numerous awards, including the Shorty, which is a Twitter award. And her work's been featured in Time, The Wall Street Journal, and a number of other publications. So we're really excited to welcome Helen here, who'll be kind of talking about some of the thoughts and the process and how she's kind of created this character feed on Twitter.
There's a little buzz in here.
Oh.
Let's see if that works. Oh,
Not only is Blaine a talented filmmaker,
he's our tech support tonight.
An excellent audio person. Thank you, Blaine.
That's right.
Great. Please welcome
thank
Helen
you.
Klein-Ross.
Thank you,
Thank
Helen.
you very much. And thank you, Blaine. And thank you, Ina and Mike, for inviting me. I'm so excited to be here. I'm just really excited to be here. And I was so excited to hear about Saving Lincoln, because I think it's very cool that the two 60s characters are coming together tonight, the 1960s and the 1860s. So there's this sort of great convergence. Okay, so I'm here to talk about social storytelling on Twitter. And I do want to say that January Jones is not going to make an appearance. So if you're counting on that, I'll understand if you leave now. I will let, neither is Abraham Lincoln, so, okay. So what is social storytelling? We can't even agree on a name for it. Social storytelling, immersive storytelling, transmedia, deep media, whatever it is, it seems really, really complicated, especially when we try to explain it to others. This is a slide of a meeting I was once in. But really, guys, it's as simple as the story of Santa. Think about it. For 2 months every year, you can't walk out of your house without being immersed in the Santa brand story. It comes at you from a remarkably varied array of touch points, so that you're immersed in the brand message, whether you're walking down a street, driving down a highway, making a call, or taking an elevator. Everyone involved in promoting the Santa brand collaborates in terms of telling the story and also contributes to it. Anyone is allowed and encouraged to participate in promoting the story, yet the story remains remarkably consistent, enriched and propelled by the participation of millions. The long-running Santa story has been so successful, it does the marketing equivalent of leaping tall buildings, convincing consumers to defy entrenched cultural mores. Santa now enjoys popularity even in agnostic China, where he has acquired the persona of Cupid, and Christmas is a holiday of romance. In Jordan a few years ago, a charity launched a campaign to promote the creation of an Islamic Santa. How can we emulate Santa's success, make our story an immersive experience that affords massive opportunity for engagement, even evangelism? By convincing others to tell our story for us, by making fans out of consumers or audience and getting them to spread word that the brand is awesome. This is far more likely to be convincing if it comes from an audience member or a consumer than from the brand or the entertainment itself, which is how it was done in the era of broadcast advertising, the era in which I grew up in the business. I spent many years in the advertising trenches as a writer, creative director, getting brand stories out the traditional way. Print ads, TV, even radio, remember that? In 2007, in a moment of desperation that everyone sitting here can probably relate to, I started an anonymous blog called AdBroad, oldest working writer in advertising. A few years later, when I came out, I was kind of sorry to be stuck with that moniker, but it was my brand differential. One day, sitting at Ogilvy working on a script for a commercial, I fell down my first rabbit hole. That's a term in transmedia, which means doing what Alice in Wonderland did. Seeing something curious, exploring it, and slipping into another world. The curious thing I saw was an email alert. It was from Twitter, a platform that was still new in 2008. It had only a fraction of the users it has today and was used mostly for information exchange. The email said, a character from my new favorite TV show was following me. Don Draper was following me. My heart started palpitating. I promptly forgot about my commercial and went onto Twitter. I thought putting one of their characters onto Twitter was a brilliant marketing move by AMC. Then it came out, it was a brilliant marketing move, but not from AMC. The tweet came from a digital strategist in Minneapolis named Paul Isaacson, who put out the tweet just to see what would happen. I started tweeting as Betty Draper. Others were claiming Mad Men Twitter names too, and pretty soon the entire Mad Men cast was on Twitter. Now fans had a new way to connect with the show, to engage with the characters between episodes, between seasons. Office microdramas played out in real time online. Betty hosted parties where she served virtual food and drink of the era, like Swedish meatballs, cheese balls, pigs in blankets, Rob Roy's. Fans were invited to take part, creating opportunity for deeper interaction with the show. Betty built up her fan base by creating a LinkedIn profile and launching a blog which explores issues of concern to a 1960s housewife. We created a tweezer, a Twitter warm-up to the premiere of season 3. We created a website and a Twitter handle for Radio City Music Hall and had the Mad Men on Twitter characters attend the premiere of It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, a movie that actually did open in 1963, the same year we knew the Mad Men premiere would be set in. We created a virtual event called Mad Worlds Collide, to which we sold free tickets, and by doing so, collected email addresses. We even crashed the time-space continuum by live tweeting the Clios of the 50th anniversary of the Clios, in which Matt Weiner was presented with a special award. What was the award? It was doing something to get people to like people in our profession. We created the first episode, which dramatized content that can't be shown in a TV episode, like when Don Draper took his daughter Sally to see the Beatles at Shea Stadium. It was a microdrama in which fans were invited to participate via Twitter. We cut together a video of the Twitter event and put it on YouTube. I think it was the first time a historical event was live tweeted. Oh, wait. Oops, sorry. So fans sent in what they actually wore. Oh, I can't stop it, but the last tweet was a really important one. And that was somebody tweeted, seeing all these tweets really makes me excited for the episode this week. That's the reason you do something like this, for a TV show or for a movie, to get fans excited between episodes, between seasons. Social storytelling has also hit Broadway. Next to Normal was the first Broadway show that played simultaneously in theater and the Twitterverse. It issued tweets during show times, which appeared in a Twitter stream for the show. Before the Twitter production began, the show sold 72% of its seats. The week it ended, seating had reached 99% capacity. Even churches are discovering the power of social storytelling. Wall Street's historic Trinity Church broke digital ground by tweeting the Passion Play. From 12 to 3 on a Good Friday, a church worker posted tweets from the church, increasing its following by 170%. That's brand evangelism. The first truly transmedia TV show was renewed for its second season by NBC Network in the Middle East. The show, called 04, is a drama about 4 20-somethings who live in Dubai. Right after the first episode aired last January, 4 fans had the chance to meet and speak with one of the stars in a Google Plus Hangout. The Hangout was viewed over 200,000 times in just 24 hours. Here's a clip.
طيب شباب نحن كثير مبسوطين لأنكم أنتم معنا.
So, since some of you might not be able to understand this, these are fans talking about what they had just seen. And as it goes on, the portion of the show that they're discussing will be shown. And then after that, a star of the portion they're talking about will show up on Google+. See, there's the episode. And everybody really likes that girl. And then she makes an appearance toward the end of this 20-minute thing, which I'm not going to show you. But I thought it was just a fascinating idea. Of course, the first and foremost transmedia storyteller was Walt Disney, who created Disneyland and the Mickey Mouse TV show to sell his brand many, many years ago. A few years ago, with no special promotion, a simple plush bear began selling out at Tokyo Disney Sea. And Disney saw opportunity to push sales further. They gave the bear a name, Duffy. They gave him a backstory. Minnie sewed the bear for Mickey to keep him company on a business trip. Then they introduced a line of accessories and made Duffy a walkabout mascot, and soon he was accounting for 40% of the merchandise sales at Disney Sea in Tokyo. One of the most important things to remember when crafting social storytelling is your audience. Who are you trying to reach? The success of any initiative is based not on how many your story appeals to, but whether or not your story appeals to the people you're trying to reach. Verizon and MTV had the same target audience, 20-somethings. They created a thriller about a girl looking for her lost brother who disappears after losing his cell phone. The product is integral to the story, but the video doesn't feel like a commercial. Well, maybe it does a little bit.
Hey, so if you're watching this, I lost my phone. Do the right thing, man. Give it back. Or else, I'm gonna find your ass.
The story was told through linear, digital, and mobile, and to promote it, interestingly, they ran spots on TV shows that appealed to the segment. I think it was the first case of on-air being used to promote online. The agency Mother developed social storytelling for the beer Stella Artois that conveyed the brand's core qualities through a character of their own invention, a French bon vivant from the 1960s who spends most of his time on red carpets and yachts. I first heard about this guy when he tweeted Betty Draper. Intrigued, I went to his Twitter feed and discovered similar shout-outs to Twitter users with a lot of followings. A link jumped me to his Facebook where there were albums of photos of him in the 60s, gallivanting madmanishly around the world. He was described as having been lost at sea, and then I was invited to enter a contest to win his place at the Cannes Film Festival. There was a fake Wikipedia entry for his character, a Flickr collection of live streaming photos, and this mock newscast on YouTube announcing his disappearance.
Jack became my doubles partner more than 30 festivals ago. It was my first festival. He was already a legend. I was up for Best Supporting Actress.
So again, a clever way to create content that's engaging and not just about the brand. Like Blaine said, none of their tweets say, go see this movie, and yet it really makes you want to go see the movie. A lot of companies get branded content wrong by focusing on their logo and branding everything, exactly what Blaine and his team are not doing. The key to branded content is creating something that people want to watch and share, but fits with the brand's core values. Red Bull did it right with this profile of a parkour player. You can see a couple cans, as well as some logos on its outfits, but it doesn't feel like a commercial and makes for pretty compelling video. After a couple days, this video got close to 250,000 views. Oops, where'd it go? I'm going to show you a little bit of it.
For me, parkour is an efficient way to achieve your personal goals. It's unpredictable. Such an amazing place. So many different cultures living together, and it's cool.
Does everybody know what parkour is? Well, yeah, I didn't when I saw it. I thought it was really cool. So they say in politics, don't ignore your fan base. But traditionally, makers of entertainment have done just that. Showrunners, including, unfortunately for me, Matt Weiner, are convinced they don't want people tweeting during a show, afraid it will distract viewers, make them miss content. But they're forgetting the show's content is something fans can and will consume more than once, and social talk about content will promote it in ways creators cannot do. Matt Corman, executive producer for Covert Affairs, realized this, and according to the Wall Street Journal I read yesterday, he's letting Twitter influence his writer's room. The final episode of the second season was rewritten to respond to questions on Twitter about whether or not this lead character would regain his lost eyesight. Prompted by tweeters who wanted to know, in the last episode, a doctor finally breaks the news to him that he's not going to get his eyesight back. He isn't a candidate for experimental treatment. Shows that respond to Twitter voices still, unfortunately, remain in the minority. but it's my dream and the dream of others like Blaine that writers' rooms will include social writers to write dialogue and parallel plot lines for Twitter and other social platforms. Because writing for social is not like writing a screenplay, as any writer of Twitter knows. The last thing I want to say is, let's stop beating ourselves up. Most of us are not doing social storytelling right yet. It's still a new art. It took a long time to master the art of telling stories on television. When TV first came out, the commercials that ran were basically radio ads with a promo card. Advertisers were taking the rules from the medium they knew, which was radio, and trying to apply it onto a new platform, but that didn't make sense. Just like now, a lot of stuff that we're doing doesn't make sense. It took about 20 years for people to hit their stride telling stories on TV. To start to figure out how to entertain audience using all the tools the new platform made available to them. DDB, Doyle Dane Bernbach, was one of the first agencies to figure out how to engage an audience, not by talking at them, but by telling them stories. And they were great, great storytellers. Here's a commercial I just can't help showing you. It's one that actual Mad Men talked about a lot at the water cooler.
Mamma mia, that's for some species. Spicy meatballs, Jack. Take 28. Mamma mia, that's a spicy meatball. Cut. The accent. Huh. Cut. Missy, micey, bossy, false. Take 59. And action.
Sometimes you eat more than you should, and when it's spicy besides, Mamma mia, do you need Alka-Seltzer? Alka-Seltzer can help unstuff you, relieve the acid indigestion, and help make you your old self again.
Mamma mia, that's a spicy meatball. Okay, let's break for lunch.
The problem was, no matter how entertaining the commercial was, when the TV went off, the story was over. The difference today is the end of the story on screen is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of opportunities for the story. Today, this couple would have a Facebook, Twitter, be on Google. She'd have a Pinterest for her recipes, and they'd probably be signing their own TV show. Just a PS, though, while this is a fabulous story and you're a story audience, and that's why I'm showing it to you, it actually turned out to be a terrible commercial because people didn't remember that it was for Alka-Seltzer. They thought it was for spaghetti, spaghetti sauce. So but it's a great, great story. So ingredients for social success and storytelling. Make sure you got good content. Let people discover stuff. Make it continuous. That's what I was admiring about the Saving Lincoln projects. Things are continuing from the film to the Twitter to the Facebook to the blog. Make it simple and make it shareable. And that's me. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Any questions?
Thank you for such a wonderful presentation. I remember being at the New York Television Festival in September 2010. And it was a transmedia panel. I remember Jeff Gomez, the Senior Vice President for Sci-Fi. And they had, in the talk, they mentioned some of these fan-created Twitter accounts. And there was this consensus that it was, just a nice catchphrase. They sort of dismissed the whole thing. Do you feel that 2 years later that major TV production companies are still not embracing some of this fan-created content?
I think that's definitely right. I think that the makers of entertainment are very afraid about control. I was just at my 40th high school reunion, And I was with a bunch of girls. It was a convent school, women my age, and some of them were artists, and anybody who was in the creative field was very concerned about social media. They were concerned that my stuff is, how can I control my stuff? And I said, wow, that's really not the right way to think about it, because the more you send out, the better it is for you. And I think that is also true of entertainment. The more it's talked about on any social platform, the better it is for the show. And there's many, many ways that that the story can be proliferated on platforms without interrupting the big Megillah. I mean, Mad Men on Twitter is an example. We were very careful never to interrupt the plot line or to disagree with it. Or, of course, on Twitter, Betty and Don would never move to Chicago. They would do things that are in parallel with the show. The episode, Don taking Sally to the Beatles, was done the week after the episode ended with Sally Draper screaming into the phone, "Daddy has to take us to the Beatles!" Ah! Now, we knew that that would never be shown, because even Matt Weiner, talented as he is, could not recreate Shea Stadium and get 50,000 extras to come. So we knew that that scene would never be shown on television. But we could do it on Twitter, and we could make other people, fans, engage with the show on Twitter, doing this kind of fun thing, going to see the Beatles in 1963 or 5, whatever it was. I have sensed movement over the past years. I really, really hope that the solution would be having a social writer in every writer's room. It's such a simple idea. Writers of Twitter cannot write screenplays, but as it turns out, many writers of screenplays cannot write Twitter. It's a different art. Twitter is it's a lot about improv. And so anyway, my hope and Blaine's hope and many people's hope is that this will be recognized in Hollywood in the near future.
I have a question. I was just, maybe I was tweeting and I didn't get the answer. When you started this feed for Mad Men, you were a fan or you were hired by them to start it?
I was not hired by them. I was a marketer. My background, as you may have guessed, is in advertising. So when I wanted to be part of what I thought would be a huge marketing wave for entertainment, so I wanted to get my sea legs in writing Twitter. So I jumped on thinking, stupidly, that AMC or Matt Weiner was screening this stuff and was about to bring on a social team to do, it just seemed to make marketing sense that that would happen. And the marketing would have to shift. It's an entertainment brand, so the marketing content would have to be fed by the stuff on the show. That was my very naive vision of what was happening. What was happening wasn't that at all.
So how did you become privy to what was happening in the scripts and what was going on with the show?
No, I did not. And as a Twitter writer for entertainment, you do not have to. And Blaine didn't have any of the footage when they began tweeting. Nothing had been shot, nothing. It's like advertising. The first ad that I wrote at 16 was for a condo that hadn't been built yet, and I was shocked. How could you write a brochure for something that's not even built yet? That's advertising, and so can this be. It's just using, the product is stories and entertainment. It turns out over time, I kind of guessed what some of the content would be. One episode ended with Betty putting Don Draper's suitcase into a closet. So she tweeted that week, taking the suitcase out of the closet or whatever. And then the episode opened with whatever I had tweeted for Betty. So sometimes you get lucky. You don't have to know the content. There's a lot of stuff. What you're writing is in the spaces. You're writing the parallel lives. Like, what does Betty do when she's not hosting a dinner party, an international dinner party that is shown on the episode? There's lots more to a life than what you see on television. Every fan knows.
Has there been any attempt to coordinate your efforts with the efforts of other fans writing other characters?
Well, there's several of us who tweeted Mad Men characters, and we have joined together in some ways. I joined some of us in an organization called Brand Fiction Factory to do this for people.
And so how does that work? Do you, after an episode airs, do you confer with those people and talk about what each of you is going to say prior to the next episode? Or?
No. Are you talking about fan fiction?
Yeah.
Oh.
The person writing at Dawn Breaker, is there a dialogue there between you and
Oh, behind the scenes? There has been, yeah. When we did the Tweezer and Twepisode, and when there's group events, yes. When we did the When Worlds Collide, I did a timeline that I sent out to people saying, okay, this is what's happening. Don and Betty are coming across town. Roger's coming with his girlfriend, and so we had agreed that the event should end 10 minutes before the episode aired. So at 9:01, tweets from Radio City started going out. At 9:02, this happened. So there was a minute-by-minute timeline that everyone had, so then they could jump in when they wanted to. Because you have to allow a certain amount of freedom as well, and that's the fun of it.
Are you working with the network now?
No, I'm not.
Are you compensated?
Not with money, no.
I know Carrie Bugby, and do you know her?
Yes.
What's her?
She was Peggy Olson.
Right.
She took up Peggy Olson.
She doesn't do that anymore.
Does she do it? I'm sorry, I haven't. Yeah.
Oh, so you don't talk much to her, coordinate with her character.
You know what? We sort of exist in the virtual world. I don't know. Maybe you guys have this, like you have your life in the 3D world, and you also have your life in the virtual world. And because these are all virtual characters, it kind of works better to be virtual, because that's the life that you have is the virtual life. That's the entertainment that you're creating.
In real life, do you talk to her?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Just trying to see what layer there is some kind of coordination or sharing. There's the character, and then there's the person actually who's a social writer behind the character. So
yes, of course, yes, yeah, yeah. All this is about marketing, really. It's about getting an entertainment brand out there and getting fans to engage with it on a deeper level. So that's really, it's about marketing. But it has to not just be about watch this show, because nobody wants to see that.
An interesting question was brought up is that what happens if one of these real personages handling, like, say, Peggy Olson decides, I don't want to do this anymore? Like,
well, there's actually many Peggy Olsons.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, there's several Peggy Olsons now, and there's so if I was doing this for real, there was a window of time when I believed this could work as marketing for Mad Men or for AMC, whoever wanted to do it. And so I was very earnest in coordinating campaign efforts. When that turned out not to be the case, there just wasn't interest. We still used it as sort of an exploratory basis, but it's. No. It means there's other. I think there's Peggy Olson SCDP. There's Peggy Olson New York. There's Peggy Olson. Somebody just tweeted me today. Peggy Olson using the initials of the new company. Anyone can create a Twitter account. That's it's what you do with it that matters.
Hi, you mentioned in 2008. I think maybe that's when you joined Twitter. That it was a small, young, sort of new innovation on the social media scene, and I don't know if that's when you jumped on, but whenever you did jump on, and you started to write out your account, I'm just curious what your learning curve was like, and how you adapted to this new sort of space and this new kind of language, this new way of communicating. And I know even from myself, but really anyone like, say, my parents' age or older, I find a lot of people have a hard time kind of getting it. And so did you find yourself like having to learn how to do it, or did you just take what you knew as a marketing person and you just
Yeah,
get
it's,
it and
as a marketer, as a writer, you learn to be the voice of brands, all kinds of brands. I'd written for almost every category there is. I also write poetry and fiction, so I think that kind of helped. Yeah, it was kind of easy. And what kind of surprised us was in the very, very beginning, some people said, how could Betty Draper, who lives in the 60s, be on Twitter? How could Don Draper be on Twitter? But that quickly went away because the truth is, how can you see men fighting in the Coliseum? I mean, how can Abe Lincoln didn't have a movie camera following him around, so how could he be filmed? I mean, now that seems so unsophisticated to us, but when we first started on Twitter, entertainment hadn't come onto Twitter in that way. It was really used for information. So there was a little learning curve in that because we hadn't used it, but we were very determined that we wanted to make it work. We did not want to interrupt the IP, the provenance of the show. We just wanted to, actually, if you want to read about this, a man who wrote The Art of Immersion, Frank Rose, who's a Wired editor, who's sitting right here, he has wonderful stories about Mad Men on Twitter and others who have brought entertainment and other things onto the social storytelling platforms. It's called The Art of Immersion, and it's an excellent book.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much, Helen. Tanya. So we're going to do a 5x5 for those of you who don't know what those are. Basically, it's 5 minutes for a member of our community to get up and talk about a project that they're working on and basically let everyone here know what they're looking for. If they're looking for help, if they're looking for someone to shoot some film or a programmer or a designer or what have you, this is a great opportunity for people to talk about their projects and get it in front of our community.
So if you have one of these now or in the future, shoot us an email, catch up with us, and we'll schedule you for a future meetup.
Yeah, and also about the newsletter that Ina mentioned, if you have projects that you're working on that you'd like for us to include in it, send them our way. Or if you happen to stumble across a project that you think is noteworthy, send it our way. We're always looking for kind of the brightest immersive media projects, so just let us know. Thanks again, Blaine, for helping with tech support. It's a thankless job, and usually I'm doing it.
Yeah. If we do that, and then this.
How do we go up to the first page?
Hey, everybody. You know what? There's a lot of convergent themes tonight. We just heard a little bit about a very popular show called Mad Men. I'm actually an actress. That's my day job, and I play Deputy Kenya Jones on True Blood. And there are about 5 different Kenya Jones that are, completely fan-generated, and I often find myself having conversations with myself online. It's very funny. But it's great what shows like True Blood and Mad Men have been able to do in the space, and it's very exciting. I, however, have a very small independent film and don't have nearly the budget of each of those shows or the resources. So here we are. My project is called Butterfly Rising. Butterfly Rising is a story about 2 women who take a road trip to meet a mythical medicine man named Lazarus of the Butterflies. I wrote this project about 7 years ago. It started as a movie first. I guess because that's the medium I'm in. The story came out in dialogue and in characters and in moving pictures. And so I wrote a screenplay. I shot the movie. But then I just felt like the process wasn't complete. So I wrote a book and then edited the movie, and the movie's been out on the film festival circuit for about a year. and the book has been out for 2 years. And right now I'm interested in creating some sort of online experience about butterfly rising that has to do with change. The butterfly is the symbol for metamorphosis, it's the symbol for transformation, and I'm interested in the idea of change and exploring that online. So Butterfly Rising is a very loose interpretation of the story of the Bible, Mary and Martha, the story of Mary and Martha from the Bible. And, I think conventional Christians, if they saw the movie, would take me to task because I've taken some very great liberties with these two women. One is black and one is white, and they go on a road trip to meet this mythical medicine man named Lazarus of the butterflies. And my sort of target audience is your female 18 to 49. And the idea about the way that I want to sort of share the film with the world is that I want it to be a feature that works and does good. In the same way that documentaries do. I feel like there are some narrative features that could possibly do the same thing that docs do. So, again, it goes back to this story of change. And I do want to possibly partner with a female-centric, faith-based organization to get the word out about the movie. So I have this idea for this game, and I say the word game loosely. It's really some sort of online experience, but I have an idea about the two characters in the movie. Lila Bell is on the left, and Rose Johnson is on the right, two very different women who literally steal a vintage truck, and they take it on the road to meet this medicine man named Lazarus. And I'm interested in this idea about change and questions about change and possibly about, I feel like this concept has something to do with these two women who are on the road and they have these stops. You get a flat tire, you have to get insurance or registration, gas up. And at each stop on the journey, the user, either Lila or Rose, is asked a series of questions. And their route will depend, or their journey will actually depend on the answers to their questions. Just like life, it's all about how we respond to life's to what life gives us. So when they're on the road, each user is asked a series of questions about change. Oh, there we go. And this is my idea of how to engage the audience. Have you experienced change recently? Divorce, marriage, job, home, loss of a loved one? Are you scared of change? And if so, what do you do? And this idea, obviously, again, about change goes back to the symbol for the movie, which is the butterfly, which is the symbol for transformation. And there's a interpretation of that. And so, yeah. So anyone who is, I'm just reaching out to anyone who might be interested, or it's really a collaborator. I'm not a very techie girl at all. I write stories about people, and that is my strength. And I'm really looking for a collaborator to help to develop this online experience about change and transformation and metamorphosis. So thank you. I'm very inspired too by the presentations tonight. It's like really great, like really exciting stuff. So cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Tanya.
Thanks.
Just a couple final announcements.
Yeah, so that was awesome. A couple of things coming up. We have a special event coming up October 12th at the Museum of the Moving Image, wherein we talk art, the future, the past, the first wave of transmedia with Mike Manello. And it's an in-depth conversation. And we have very, very limited seating. We are not going to be ticketing. We're not going to be going through Meetup on that one. We're going to be ticketing on a different platform. So, Ideally, you would be signed up because that way you'll get the email about it. You will get a notice from Meetup, but you will not be able to sign up on Meetup. So look out for it. It'll probably go out in the next 5 or 6 days. And that is October 12th. October 12th at the Museum of the Moving Image, which is in Astoria. Do not sigh. Okay. And then our next meetup, we're really excited. We're going to have Andrew de Viga, who is the multimedia editor for the New York Times. He's kind of an exceptional character who's built these amazing immersive experiences around documentary and real life events for the New York Times, some of which you may not see when you're just like kind of browsing their site. You're going to see the depth and the breadth of the work that they do, and it's pretty stunning and technologically very different from a lot of the stuff that we normally show. So we're excited and hope you can come.
Yeah, lots of stuff about process too, which should be really interesting.
The date of the next meetup is October 23rd. And we'll send we usually release the meetups 2 weeks out, Tuesday at noon.
All right, thanks everyone for coming. Take care.